Okay, good morning, and thank you, Hannah. Okay, so can I just see by a show of hands, how many of you know someone who's been diagnosed with Alzheimer's or another dementia? Yeah, not uncommon. I find it when I walk into a room and ask that question, usually 95% of the hands go up. So this is has a significant impact on the community. So let's just, raise your hands again. Take a look. Everybody look at the impact that this has. Okay. So the numbers are overwhelming. There are over 7 million people in the United States living with Alzheimer's or another dementia, and every statistic is a real person, a real family, a real story. And then there's about 12 million people, spouses, children, even grandchildren, who are providing care, not for a paycheck, but out of love for the person they care for. They're giving their time, their energy, and their own health and well-being to ensure the quality of life of the person that they love. Alzheimer's isn't just a disease of memory, but it steals futures. It's just one of the most expensive conditions in our society, and it's draining for families, both emotionally and financially. If we don't act, the toll will continue to grow on our healthcare system and our communities. So my hope is that before you leave today, that you'll leave informed and inspired to share what you've learned, inspired to support someone who's struggling, and inspired to stand with us in this fight. Now, I do want to call attention to our Alzheimer's Association table over there. Can I ask Denise and our other volunteers to raise their hand? We have lots of information, so please stop by. They can answer almost any question anybody might have. Oops. So anyway, we have lots of material and information. Before we go any further, let's take a minute and make sure we're all grounded in what we mean when we talk about Alzheimer's and dementia. These terms are often used interchangeably, but they're not the same thing. Dementia is not a single disease. It's really an umbrella term. And like heart disease, it covers a wide range of conditions that affect memory, thinking, language, problem solving, and even personality. These changes are serious enough to impact daily life and independence, and they don't just affect the person living with dementia. They affect the families and relationships and entire communities. So Alzheimer's disease is the most common cause of dementia, accounting for about 60 to 80% of people, but it's not the only one. There's also vascular dementia that can result from tiny strokes or blood vessel blockages in the brain. Some people even experience mixed dementia where they have more than one kind. And then there are other conditions like thyroid issues or vitamin deficiencies that can cause dementia-like symptoms, but are actually treatable and reversible. And that's why understanding the difference is so important, and why that matters, and why early diagnosis matters. Like I said, Alzheimer's is the most common cause. And did you also know that it affects women much more than men? We're not sure why that is, but women do tend to be disproportionately affected. And most people living with Alzheimer's are 65 or older, but it can affect people who are much younger. It's only about 5% of people who are diagnosed below the age of 65, but it does impact people. It could be as early as 30s or 40s or even 50s. We've heard too many stories of people who didn't even know they had dementia until they lost their job or they couldn't do it anymore, and then they went to their doctor and got diagnosed, and it was life-changing for them because they were also the breadwinner, so it impacted the family in so many ways. But the bottom line, it is a progressive disease, which means it does get worse over time. In the beginning, memory loss might seem mild, maybe misplacing keys or forgetting names, but as the disease advances, it does take away the ability for someone to hold a conversation, to even maybe recognize loved ones, or respond to the world around them. So that's why early detection is so important, because dementia, often it's subtle when it starts, and it's easy to confuse those early warning signs as normal aging. Because I've had families talk about a loved one and they'll say, well, that's grandma, she's always been that way. When in fact, it's not necessarily typical for her. It is something that warrants a discussion with a healthcare provider. And sometimes families are in denial, or sometimes the individual is in denial and they're trying to compensate, so they forget the name of their next door neighbor, so they just don't use the name and they just keep on going. And so people really don't appreciate the value of getting an early diagnosis, because there are new treatment options I'm going to talk about in a minute. Then I want to also talk about some populations that are at higher risk. Studies have shown that Black Americans are twice as likely as white Americans to develop Alzheimer's. And Hispanic Americans are 1.5 times more likely than non-Hispanic white Americans to develop the disease. Now, members of underserved, diverse communities are also more likely to endure poverty and have more limited access to quality health care, or maybe they don't feel comfortable, maybe they don't trust their health care providers, maybe they don't feel they're going to be treated the same. And they may also be less likely to pursue a diagnosis or receive support or even participate in a clinical trial. So Alzheimer's does have a disproportionate impact, as I said, on women. And in the United States, there's more than 11 million women who are either living with Alzheimer's or caring for someone who has it. And about 2/3 of Americans living with Alzheimer's are actually women. And women in their 60s are more than twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's disease over the rest of their lives as they are to develop breast cancer. It's pretty shocking, right? So the association believes that health equity is not optional. It's essential, and that means ensuring every community has a fair and just opportunity to access early diagnosis, risk reduction strategies, and quality care. We're deeply committed to engaging with underrepresented and underserved communities, listening to their needs, and responding with culturally relevant resources, education, and support. So I mentioned early warning signs. I want to spend a minute just talking about some of those early warning signs, because so often people mistake them for normal aging. And my point today is that these are things people should be having conversations with their healthcare provider about, because it can have such profound effects on individuals. All of us really should be equipped to recognize those early warning signs. So these are the 10 warning signs, and we have a card at our table, so if you want to take this back with you and kind of go down the list, if you're thinking about somebody you know or love, you can kind of look at that and see which ones they may be experiencing. So, the signs appear in varying degrees, and they don't always have all of them. It might be something that shows up first. Somebody I know was absolutely fine, and then all of a sudden they were getting overdue notices, bills weren't being paid, and he said, I know I paid them, but they were getting these notices, or just taking longer to do everyday tasks. So it's really about memory loss that disrupts daily life, and challenges in planning and solving problems, or difficulty completing familiar tasks. One of the caregivers I know, the first sign they saw in her mom was the mom used to make this famous cake for every holiday, every family occasion, and it was her trademark cake, and then one time the cake really didn't taste right, and they think she substituted salt for flour. And that was the first sign that something wasn't right, because she had always made that cake for 50 years and suddenly something was really wrong. Or confusion with time or place, trouble understanding images, spatial relationships, words, speaking, misplacing things, and losing the ability to retrace steps. So raise your hand if you've ever walked into a room and said, what did I come in here for? Right, all of us have done that. But somebody with dementia probably cannot retrace their steps, and they might not be able to know why they did that. Or how many times have we said, where's my phone? Where did I put it? Where did I leave it? And, those who have a watch with a special button on it can hit that button and hear the phone talking to them in another room. But we all do that, right? But someone with dementia, not only might they not know where the phone is, but they might not know what to do with it or how to use it anymore. Or maybe the phone is in the freezer. So it's not even on the kitchen counter or in the bedroom. It might be in a really unusual place. So again, these are things to watch out for, pay attention to, and have that conversation. Even withdrawal from work and activities. Sometimes when people have difficulty getting the words out and they can't keep up with a conversation, they may just stop going out with their friends. They feel uncomfortable, they feel awkward, or just changes in mood or personality. Someone was telling me their grandma, who's the kindest, sweetest lady in the world, all of a sudden she started using words that could make a sailor blush, which was so uncommon, which no one had ever heard her even use those words. They didn't know she knew those words. So again, my point is, it's better to know than not know. So if you notice any of these warning signs in yourself or someone you care about, make an appointment. Early diagnosis is very important. And it's, like I said, it's better to know than not know, because it can give the opportunity for families to plan. Because so often people get this diagnosis, and one of the questions the doctor says is, well, does Mary have advance directives and a will? And the answer is no. It was one of those things that they put off. Then we'll do it tomorrow, right? We all do that. But now it's important because Mary's still in a position where she can direct what she wants or doesn't want, and wants to designate, well, who's going to get her engagement ring. And if she doesn't do those things, then the family is at a loss trying to figure out what would she want. Or what if she needs some medical care later on and she's no longer in a position to say what she would want done? I mean, I've heard a real story about a family where the dad had advanced Alzheimer's and then gets a diagnosis of lung cancer. And the daughter said, oh, we have to do chemotherapy. And the son says, no, he wouldn't want that. You can't put him through that. And the daughter said, well, he was a good Catholic. He would want us to do everything we can. And here, the two that swear they know him the best are arguing over what he would want, and he's not able to say, this is what I want or don't want. So this is why it's really important to have all these things in place, and getting that diagnosis early gives families the ability to plan and to begin not only short-term planning but long-term planning, begin understanding the service landscape and what might be available to them as the needs of their loved ones change. The other really important reason is we actually have now, for the first time, some new treatments. And the treatments are only going to be effective for people in the very early stages who are experiencing mild cognitive impairment. So if someone isn't diagnosed until much later in their journey, their doctor can't even have a conversation with them about the treatments. Now, the treatments they're not a cure, we're not there yet, but there is real hope on the horizon, and they are showing that they're able to do more than just manage symptoms. They're actually changing the course of Alzheimer's disease. And so there are a few new treatments, medications that the FDA has approved in the last year or two, and they're showing that they can temporarily ease some of the symptoms like memory loss and confusion, but there are also what we call these anti-amyloid drugs. Amyloid is a protein deposit in the brain that's associated with Alzheimer's. And in clinical trials, participants who received these anti-amyloid treatments experienced a reduction in cognitive decline and functional decline, meaning that the treatments were successful at slowing disease progression. So anyway, all I'm going to say is it's really important to know sooner rather than later, to consider all of the options, to plan, and really have the ability to have a much higher quality of life and better management of other chronic conditions. So while the new treatments are giving us hope, there's also research showing that what we do every day can make a real difference in protecting our brain health. There are many risk factors for Alzheimer's and other dementia, and some, like age, we can't control, but others are within our reach. The science is still evolving, but the evidence is strong. Positive, everyday actions can make a difference in brain health, even lowering the future risk for cognitive decline. So we have a card on our table called the 10 Ways to Love Your Brain, but it really is all about exercise, physical activity, staying socially connected, keeping your heart healthy, challenging your brain with new activities, and then there's good news that these habits work even better when combined. There was a study presented this week at a big international Alzheimer's research conference called the U.S. Pointer Study that again showed a strong relationship with certain lifestyle factors and brain health. And so I would just say, everybody pick up that card, keep those New Year's resolutions because they are really making a difference. And just a quick look at some of those healthy habits. This is the card we have on the table, but take a look at this. And diet, of course, has a big role to play, nutrition, and as I mentioned, moving, physical activity. So take a look at this, think about those New Year's resolutions, try and make a commitment because the research is even more clear than it ever has been that these are things that can modify your future risk for cognitive decline. And then before you leave, I want to make sure that you all know about the resources that are available through the Alzheimer's Association. For example, we have a 24/7 phone number that you can call, our helpline, any time of the day or night, any day of the year, and ask any question that you might have related to Alzheimer's or dementia. It could be something simple like, I need a list of elder law attorneys near me. Do you have a list? Or do you have adult day centers near me? I think mom would really benefit from adult day. Or do you have suggestions for activities? Because mom just sits all day and watches TV, and I know that's not stimulating. Do you have activities? Do you have recommendations for things we can do to keep her mentally active and keep her moving? So really, almost any question somebody might have, you can get the answer to that from calling the helpline. Not only that, but if there's for example, if the caller is asking about what do I do about behavior issues when dad exhibits some behaviors that are scary, they will not only walk them through some ideas, but they'll follow up and they'll send them information by email or mail with some other ideas for how to redirect their attention. Or if, Aunt Mary is moaning, but nobody knows why. Is she hot? Is she cold? Is she hungry? Is she in pain? Does she have to go to the bathroom? They'll really help coach them and try and figure out what might be causing it and try and give them some ideas for how to address that. We also have support groups. We have over 50 support groups in Maryland. Many of them are virtual, so it doesn't matter where you live. Many are in person. And if you call the helpline, if you're interested in a support group, they can tell you exactly if you want to go to an in-person one, they can tell you what's happening near you. We also have specialty groups. We have a Spanish language group. We have a Korean language group. We have a frontotemporal dementia group. We have a late stage, early stage, late onset group. So there are so many different groups. If somebody is interested, I would strongly encourage you to call the helpline. And I know a lot of times there's resistance. A lot of people feel like, I don't want to go to a support group. And then they go and something magical happens. They meet other people and they realize they're not alone. And they have a network now of people they can just talk and unload and share what's going on, but also learn from them. What's helping them? What are their strategies? What's working? Because they obviously are having some of the same problems, and so they learn from each other. We also have a wide variety of education programs that we offer because for most caregivers, there is nothing instinctive about caring for a loved one with dementia. So whether it's learning how to communicate with someone who can no longer use words or managing difficult behaviors or just learning about the financial and legal decisions that should be made while you can, or new advances in Alzheimer's treatments. So we have an ongoing schedule of these education programs every month. Some are virtual, some are in person. Again, you can always call the helpline, and if you say this is a topic I'd like some more information on, they can tell you if there's a program coming up near you or available that you can participate in virtually. So I would definitely keep that helpline number. We have cards on the table. We even have a magnet for those of you who are caring for a loved one with dementia. I would say pick up that magnet because it has the 800 number on it. You can keep it on your refrigerator and know that you can call that number 3 p.m., 3 a.m., or any other time of the day if you have a question. So please make sure you familiarize yourself with these programs and services. Also, I didn't mention Trial Match. A lot of people will call us and say, you know, mom had it, grandma had it, I feel like I want to do something. Are there any clinical trials that would be recruiting people like me? And with Trial Match, it's like you could sign up, create a profile, and then they reach out to you if there's a clinical trial recruiting people like you. And then you can say yes or no at the time. There's no obligation to go forward. And some trials, people think, oh, they're all testing drugs, but they're testing a lot of different things. Some are testing interventions to see if it makes caregiving easier for the caregiver, or they're testing caregiver stress, or they're looking at hearing loss. Did you know there's also a relationship? Hearing loss is one of the modifiable risk factors that can contribute to cognitive decline. So there's all different kinds of studies, and they don't all involve drugs. And we need two things. We need money for research, but we also need people willing to participate in research. So if you have any interest, you can always fill out a profile at Trial Match, and then you can decide when they contact you if you want to go forward or not. And then finally, before we leave, I just want you to know, to help our mission, we engage volunteers in every level of our organization, whether it's to raise funds or support our efforts, or to facilitate support groups, or to lead education programs in the community. And so if there's any role that you or someone you know might want to play, we welcome you to join us, to be a part of our work. And by the way, we have 7 walks in the greater Maryland chapter area. And the Baltimore Walk this year is going to be held at the Maryland Zoo in Baltimore on November 1st. So if you have any interest, you can walk, you can start a team, or you can volunteer to help us. We always need volunteers. So please pick up, there's a flyer on the table about the upcoming schedule of walks. So we thank you for any role you might want to play, but more importantly, we want to help you if you're currently a caregiver or know someone who is. So I just want to thank everybody for being here today. I want to thank MPT for hosting this. This is a wonderful event. We know that there are all kinds of caregivers, not just those caring for people with dementia, and so we salute all of you. We know that you are deeply committed to the people you love, and we thank you for what you're doing and hope that this is a helpful event for you and you're able to pick up lots of information.